Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to bring you this amazing sister and actually get to know her even more. We were just chatting a little bit and so many synchronicities, so many connections. I'm so grateful. So, welcome, Michelle. I'm so excited that you're here and thank you for joining us. Really, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on and listening to the message of the request that I had of being on more podcast interviews. So thank you for
Yay.
listening.
Well, I always start the podcast with just a little grounding to connect us with our energy. So I invite you to close the eyes. And for those of you that are listening to, feel free to close your eyes so that feels safe. Let's take a deep inhale through the nose. Exhale fully through the nose. Deep inhale and deep exhale. And just connecting to yourself, connecting to the heart, just connecting to the womb, and just being present with the beautiful energy that is you. Soy que sarena me kasarenina na makai que si. Knowing that how you are, you're perfect. Soy que sarena na makai que serenina na makai que si. Knowing that your authenticity is your power. Soy que sarena na makai que sirenina kaki. Know that you're worth being celebrated. Soy que sareta kasarenina na makai que si. And in this space, you're so welcome. Everything about you is welcome and celebrated. Koi seta kasarenina na makai que si que si. Let's take a deep inhale through the nose and let's hold the breath. And just really feeling that deep connection, perhaps even setting an intention for this transmission. And exhale whenever you're ready. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Sabaiki. Beautiful sister. I'm so excited to get to know you even more after chatting a little bit before we started recording. So Michele is known as Michele.the.mystic in Instagram. And I would just really like to know, who is Michele.the.mystic?
Beautiful question and beautiful opening. I feel so grounded and loved. Just saw so much white light and all of our angels and all the angels too of everyone listening to this episode. Just magical. That's a great question. I think, on this journey of being human, right, in this lifetime, we are constantly evolving. And I had changed my name to Michele the Mystic around 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And when I changed it, it was almost like an encompassing energy, right? Of this is all of me. And at the same time, this is none of me, right? When we attach to our labels, when we attach to even our names, right? Like who we are in this lifetime, it's like, how could that even encompass our soul? How can that even encompass the magnitude of our power of who we are? So Michele the Mystic is always changing.
I love that answer.
Like, I feel like Michele the Mystic is a great, like, umbrella overlay of literally everything I am and everything I'm continually uncovering, right? Because we have so many lifetimes in us and they are slowly activating. Our DNA is slowly activating. We're slowly learning our wisdom again and remembering our knowledge. So yeah, I've been called an enigma, actually.
Wow, thank you. And there's so much deep wisdom in what you said, because yes, we can get so attached into what our labels or titles are, and then maybe in that attachment don't really get to embrace the fullness of it all, right? And it's such a beautiful way of really saying we are constantly evolving, so whoever we were even an hour ago, we might not even be that person anymore, or even like last year, or even yesterday. And I love to see the death and rebirth process when we go to bed, when we go to sleep, right? Because it's like one day could just so many things happen and be so powerful, and we get to fully reset through that night, even though our spirits go out and do their work. and then come back the next day like a refreshed new canvas. That's what I like to call it. So we get to play again
Mhm.
and get to know us in a different way, right? So it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to really sit with that. The shifts in all of us. There's so much power in that, and about embracing that, really embracing that, which it sounds so much like you're totally embracing that. And based on the little things that you've been sharing about your story, you've been embracing that for a bit. Would you like to
Yeah.
share with us a little bit of how you came around to be Michele the Mystic?
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that I'm on your podcast at this moment because I actually had my biggest awakening around 5 years ago this time.
Wow.
So, grew up in New York City as an empath, as a highly sensitive soul, right? And ever since I was a child, I knew I was here to do some big work. As
Mhm.
many of us know, right? Those your listeners, right? All of us light workers, like we know from a young age, we almost have this like urgency, right? Like time is going to run out. Like I'm not going to make the impact I'm meant to make here, but we have all the time in the world, right? Time is an illusion. So when I was young, I was very open. I was very gregarious and talkative and a leader. And my mom would always share, we would go to the park and I always had kids around me. I was always just that boss energy, right? And once I started school, I realized I had to shut down my gifts, right? It was almost this like protective mechanism, especially living in one of the biggest cities of our world.
Mhm.
And I shut down my gifts for survival for most of my life. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of us who are I say all of us are intuitive, right? But those of us who are here to be the true way showers, we sign up for big experiences and big trauma and big life
Oh
events
yeah.
and yeah, just things that polarize that are the polarity of our soul and of our light that we came in as babies. So my 20s, I was drinking and partying and just I shut down. I had experiences and pockets of times where I reflect and I'm like, oh wow, my psychic channel was open then, or I didn't listen
Mhm.
to my intuition then, or just the humanness of this journey. And then 5 years ago, my partner at the time got a job in San Francisco and he's like, do you want to move? And I've always had a free spirit. I actually almost moved to California when I became a speech therapist, right? Which is
Mm.
not a coincidence, helping children find their voice, right? And then I
Wow.
found my own voice along the way. So yeah, so I had always thought of California, even, I think it was like around 2010. I thought about moving out to California, but I didn't. I was afraid, right? Fear stops
Mm.
a lot of it. And 5 years ago, we decided like, let's go. So it was a grand adventure, right? I left a pension behind, right? I was working for the New York City school district. I left all these things, I was a rebel. It was like, oh, like you're just going to move across the country and leave, this job and all these things, right? The attachments we all have. And that's when my awakening really kicked
Mm.
off, and I actually just shared this on my own podcast, um, that I was getting sick a lot, right? It was a jarring move. It was uprooting an entire life, moving cross country, and I began getting sick, and my body was speaking, right? As we know, as women, our bodies are so intelligent, men too, but
Mhm.
as women, right, we give birth, we are so connected to this womb. And I was getting sick and I didn't know why. And my job was very stressful. It was very different than New York City. And
Mm.
something I think I had done a like card reading, and she was just like, you need healing, like you need a vacation. Your guides are banging on your door, like they are trying to
Mhm.
communicate with you and you are not open. You can't hear them. So I went on Yelp one night and found my now Reiki teacher randomly, right? Quote unquote randomly, And a couple of weeks later, I went to her for a Reiki session, didn't know her from a hole in the wall. And after that session, I knew, one, that I was going to become a Reiki Master Teacher myself, and
Mhm.
two, just so much of the healing from the last 30 years of my life. So it's that was like really the catalyst, me moving across the country and leaving so much of my old life behind, right? Because we have to release things in order to make space for new.
Mhm.
And I went on to start women's circles. I just led myself, and I didn't have, coaching and facilitation. Like I was just like, people ask me like, how did you start? I just started. I just trusted, right? I just trusted my heart. I trusted my soul of like, women need me. I have to put my ego aside and my inner critic aside, right? Of who am I to do this? Because a lot of us have that
Mhm.
fear of trusting. But the thing is that we've done this for lifetimes. Nothing we do in this lifetime is new to our soul. Many of us are ancient, ancient spirits who have
Mhm.
decided to incarnate in this lifetime because it's a big time in our world, in our universe,
Oh, yeah.
to show the light, to share the light, and to be the pillar of light for ourselves and others. So that was where it started. It's wild to think like, as right, we're recording, there's so many planets in retrograde, and it's like I've been in deep, deep reflection. So yeah, I started women's circles, I started coaching and Reiki healings and then teaching Reiki. And yeah, I feel it's ever evolving. It's ever evolving.
Totally. Thank you for sharing. Wow. And I so resonate with this of like just doing it, right? Like our intuitive nature is like, hey, like you said, we've done this before. How about we just start doing this again? And it just comes, there's so much guidance from the heart space, there's so much guidance from all our ancestors and also like all the lives that we've lived before, right? So
Mhm.
I really deeply believe, and sometimes when I see my heart space, I see like this beautiful portal and there's all these other lives are just coming through and ancestors and wisdom that I can see all my ancestors behind, almost like behind a door of my heart, just like, hey, here you go. Hey, here you go. Hey, here you go. And it's like, wow, we get to experience this when we really surrender and get out of our ways, right? And also for the highest good of all, right? Like for all these amazing women that you have been helping. And, right. And I also resonate so much with Reiki and how it just transformed things. There was this moment where I had one of my dearest friends from Las Vegas. She kept just telling me about Reiki, like nonstop, like nonstop. It was like unbelievable. But in that moment, I was so into yoga meditation that I was like, I just have this bubble. It's okay. And then I was releasing the things from my depression and the suicidal tendencies that I had. And one moment I was just freaking out and I just messaged her and I said, hey, I just need a hug. That's all I need. Can I just come over? And she lived like in the opposite side of Las Vegas. So then I just like drove like 40 minutes out and I went to see her and I was just crying, sharing. And she's like, okay, like lay down on my bed. I'm gonna do some Reiki on you, okay? And I was like, sure. I was like, I don't even know what that means, but yes. And then she's like, set up your intentions. Just set up your intentions. And my intentions literally was like, let me feel some clarity. I just want to feel some clarity. And no joke, like I went from feeling like, when you feel like, oh
Mm.
my God, there's so much moving, I don't know what to do with all these things, to like, and then afterwards I was like, what in the world was this? And she's like, girl, it's Reiki. I've been trying to tell you. I was like, wow. And after that, I was hooked, I was hooked. But the beautiful thing about it that on my drive back home, I got the clarity and I was mind blown. I was like, wow,
Mhm.
okay, I just needed that space, like you said, creating that space in order for me to receive. And the same thing, I was very clear on like, I've done this before. And energy work just came so naturally. And I really believe it's really a deep part of us too, that at times we just push it aside. So
Mhm.
I'm so grateful how all these things come into our journeys.
Yeah, I always say they find us, people are like, "How'd you find Reiki?" I'm like, "It found me."
Yes.
Kundalini yoga found me at a time where I needed it. And it's really beautiful when we allow, right, the unfoldment of our lives, because our ego, our human can block, we can block ourselves, right? We're our
Totally.
biggest enemies, honestly. Like, we're the ones with the resistance. It's not external forces most of the time.
Yes, totally. I would love to hear how Kundalini Yoga came into your life because it
Yeah.
plays a big part of mine.
Yeah. So I 2 years ago, I left that partnership. We had been living in Colorado, and it was just time. I knew I had to choose myself. So around this time, 2 years ago, I chose myself and I left, and I didn't know what was the next step.
Mm,
So I just knew I had to trust. I knew, and up until that moment, my ego was still fighting. Like, no, we have to stay. We're meant to be here. And it was like, no, it's time to go. Like, I literally had my soul, my higher self, show me two doors. One door of staying and living a comfortable life and,
mhm,
being okay, but not living to my fullest,
mm,
highest soul potential, right? That so many of us chose in this lifetime. And the other timeline was me 80 years old on this beautiful, like, retreat center space, and just like looking at my legacy and like, look at what we created. And I have chills
mm.
as I say that because it's coming true. I feel it. I see it. And so anyway, for 3 months, I stayed with friends in Denver. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I knew Colorado wasn't home, and I just sat in the void. I honestly sat in that
Mm,
discomfort, in that womb space of, like, I just left so many versions of me and a
yeah.
life behind, and I know a new one is
Ooh,
coming, but it's not here yet. So for
mhm.
anyone listening, moving through a transitional stage, a space where you don't know what's up, what's down, you just know you made a right decision. And right decisions, most aligned decisions, do not always feel good. Right? That is a spiritual bypass. Is like, oh, the most aligned decision is going to feel like rainbows and butterflies. No, it's actually usually the hardest
Mhm.
decision to make, because our soul takes the wheel, right? And our human
Yeah.
is kicking and screaming most of the time. So I didn't know. I just sat and I meditated and I got quiet and I just surrendered, right? That surrender, we're not taught in this lifetime to surrender. We're taught to follow
Mm.
rules and to abide and live the cookie cutter life. And if you're listening to this, you are not a cookie cutter woman. Like, no way, Jose. Like, we are here to be sacred rebels. So I then began hearing, you're meant to travel. You're meant to buy a car and just solo travel around the US, like, have this free spirit, have this journey, right? The heroine journey,
Mm.
the maiden journey of, like, being free. And the wild part is I saw those visions years prior when I was living in San Francisco in that
Wow.
apartment, and just like, huh, like, how are that makes no sense. Like, what is that? Like, I saw myself on these open roads of our country and in the US, and driving by myself. So I bought a car at the end. It was now like around Thanksgiving. I bought a car. I bought my car, Lala, and I started a journey with a soul sister. And she had been trained in Kundalini and had started like sharing some mantras. So one of them, Kriya. So one of them is Kirtan Kriya, which I still too
Mhm.
do to this day because it held me in that
Mm.
transformation.
Mhm.
And that's where it really began. And then this is a wild synchronicity, but it makes sense of why it was beginning of that journey, because we're in this like tiny Colorado ski town, and her mentor calls her up and is like, hey, I have the sickness that's going around. I can't go to Maui to facilitate my Kundalini yoga retreat. Can you go? So my friend is like, "Oh my God, Michelle, like, I've never done this before." And I allow her to like have the wave of emotion, but immediately my psychic channel is like, "Oh, I'm going with her." Like, I knew. So 4 days later, we're driving in a snowstorm to the Denver airport to hop on a plane to Maui for a 10-day Kundalini yoga retreat.
Wow.
And that was just, it was almost like my guides showing me heaven, showing me, this is the beginning of your journey. We have to give you this big, juicy, like peach and show you this life, because it's going to be a journey until you're
Mm-hmm.
back here one day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Kundalini yoga was almost that support over the last, now 2 years, to help me transition out of, that old life that I had left.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for hearing the call and for going for it. Because, like you said, those transitions in life where you're meant to grow are the most challenging ones. And oof, there's so much deep death, like really
Yes.
deep death, but a beautiful rebirth. And Kundalini yoga is beyond challenging,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. So challenging. I really find that like all yoga traditions are challenging as they are, right? But there's something about Kundalini yoga that, from my experience and the experience of my students, you get to go inside really deep and really quick. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like, here you are. This is how you're seeing yourself, but this is how you are. And now, like, can we just head there? Can you walk that path, like being inside? And it can feel very scary, it can feel super scary, but at the same time, there's there's such a powerful space that is being held by the tradition, by the lineage, by all the masters, by all the teachers that
Mm.
have walked like this journey, and it's transmitted also through the teacher, so like your soul sister that was there. And what a beautiful experience for her too, and what a beautiful opportunity to be in that space and to also witness you as you're transforming with that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We still talk about it to this day, because it was just a beautiful synchronicity. And then to see her step into her leadership, because she used to come to my women's circles that I would hold in San Francisco, and it was like, you're ready. Like, I'm there to hold that support for you, but you're also here to now help teach me and hold space for
Mm,
me. So it
yeah.
was, it was, I was like, wow, like, okay. Then I was starting to be like, okay, this decision now is starting to feel more aligned, that I'm making movement, right? Because the human just wants to move. We want the next thing, right? It's like, oh, if I'm moving, it means it's quote unquote good. But every part of
Mhm.
our journey, every challenge, every experience, there's no good or bad, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you mentioned Kirtan Kriya. I do that Kriya every morning.
Me too. It's
It's
just, it brings me right back to, like, Michele, look how far you've come. And it's about transformation itself, right? It's about that
yeah.
ever evolving energy. So yeah,
And it's
all-time
it's
favorite.
beautiful. I mean, there's so much that we can talk about. A lot of that Kriya is just the powerful thing about it, about any Kriyas or meditations or mantras, is that they're really quick. You can even do 1 minute of them. It's like the whole system is reset. It's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily like sitting and doing like 30 minutes or an hour or more than that. You can accomplish so much with just 3-5 minutes, that kind of practice. It's so good.
Yeah, which is great for these busy lives we have, right? It's like,
Mm.
yeah, it's amazing. I'm so happy it found me, right? Because it finds us.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I've done 2 Kundalini yoga teacher trainings. The first one was in Las Vegas. So it was just synchronicity like that. I was doing a past life regression. We went on my friends from the Reiki circle, and he was training to become one, to facilitate that space. And I was like, sure, I'll try it out. And then there was this point after the whole journey that he's asking my subconscious mind. It's like, what does she need to know? And the answer was Kundalini. He had no idea what that
Mm.
meant, but then I was like, oh gosh, I know, because I had already gone to the Kundalini yoga studio in Las Vegas, and I had a out of body experience in my first class, and it freaked me out. And at the same time, I felt very at home in that space. And I was like, I know what it is. It's okay. I got it. And then 2 months down the road, there was the first Kundalini yoga teacher training being offered in Las Vegas. And I was like, okay, I'll, I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to sign up. And my teacher says that I was the first one to sign up.
Ah,
And then he's like, what made you sign up? I was like, message from spirit, you know. So, and it was beyond transformational. I mean, I'm so grateful for the practice. It still helps me, you know, like it has been holding me for since 2016. And I'm
mm,
really honored that, yeah, like you said, it came into my life right when I needed it. And through all this whole transformation, it's come, you know, it's still here. And it's an honor to also guide that practice for others too. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, amazing.
Hmm. So you were sharing a little bit before we started to record that you just had this massive transformation this past week. Would you like to share with us about it? A new version
Oh.
of Michele.the.mystic.
Yeah, so what we're recording, and there's just so many planets in retrograde, and I'm really reflecting on this journey, the newest journey, right? Like the maiden journey is now, she's coming to an end. I've recently moved to Las Vegas to be with my partner. So long story short, right after that retreat, I went on to travel the US for a year. So I was with my car and I was house and pet sitting to get
Mm,
around. I was still doing speech therapy work and also my healing work online, remote. Everything was remote. And it brought me to beautiful animals, beautiful cities, beautiful people, experiences, communities. And then last summer, I actually, there was a mental health scare in my family, in my immediate
mm,
family. So I was called to go back home to New York City for the month of August. My dad was really battling really bad mental health. And so
mm,
I stayed and lived with my mom for a
mhm,
month and, held a lot of us are the rainbow sheep of our families, right? We're the light workers and we're the pillars of light. So I knew I had to go home and support. But also my inner child was suffering, right? She was moving through her own trauma and things were coming up in my awareness that I had put away for so long.
mhm,
So that was a huge shift in my solo traveling. And I was really called to go into deep healing and grief and a lot of different things. So I stayed in New York for a month and then I slowed down the journey. So I had only a few more stints of house sitting where I was beginning of last year, I was doing like 1 to 2 weeks or a couple of days and traveling again, but I was doing like month-long house sits. And then something in January of this year was like, go to Sedona. So I went to Sedona, not knowing that I would live there. I was visiting my friend who I talked about the Kundalini yoga retreat. She was living there and she's like, my roommate's moving out. Do you want to move in? Right as I'm like just traveling through. So I moved to Sedona and then I met my partner a month later randomly at a juice shop there and we became friends and he lives in Vegas and then I don't know 2 months later we start dating and now I'm living here and I just feel like the maiden journey, right? That solo travel, that like free spirited Michele that had to have everything crumble in her life, right? Her
mm,
old, even my business, right? So much just has crumbled to create a foundation for new. And I'm feeling this spark again to
mm,
share. Like I've been, I have friends are like, Michele, you've been showing up this whole time though. Like you still share on your podcast. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not sharing. I'm not like get into the nitty gritty, the vulnerable parts of our journey, right? The shadow work, right? Because what we were saying before we started recording, the highlight reel, You know, everyone
Mhm.
sees the highlight reel, everyone sees the pretty pictures and the destinations and thinks that our lives are higher or better. And it's like, no, we are also in the trenches too.
Yeah.
So I have really also began really getting serious about my book. I am writing a book about that maiden journey, that
Mm.
solo journey, because there are a lot of women who are afraid to, or who are waiting to leave a partner, who are waiting to start a business, who are waiting to travel alone, who are, you know, it's this waiting game. And like, there's a quote, I forgot who it is. I don't, it's not a Buddhist quote. I can't remember, but it's literally like Americans are waiting to die.
Mm.
We're just waiting, right? We're waiting to lose the 10 pounds. We're waiting to, oh God, all these things. It's like, no, today is the day. Leap before you're
Yeah.
ready, right? You don't even have to know what's after that next step. Just take the step,
Mhm.
because our souls are always calling. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm in the process of writing that book. And
Amazing.
yeah, it feels good
Yeah.
to intentionally create again from a space of love and inspiration. And um
Mhm.
after that, yeah, that healing.
Wow. Thank you. I'm sure this book is going to be amazing and help so many. Yeah, help so many
It's
too.
gonna
I'm
be
really
juicy. It's
excited.
gonna be good.
Yes, yes. And I love what you said about, the foundation crumbling up and then the other one coming back, right? And it's just one of the most beautiful parts of the awakening process. And I'm so fascinated by it that, we have this foundation, this really divine and powerful foundation through our whole lives. And we don't know that it is really there because then we created this quote unquote fake foundation on top of it from
Mhm.
who we believe we are or what people told us that we are or what we should do, what we should not do, and then covering that beautiful aspect of us, right? And then once we commit to ourselves and say like, yes, I'm ready, and I'm in it, then that foundation that I wasn't really ours to begin with, but it begins to crumble. But then here's that play of like, am I losing myself? I'm just like
Mm.
letting go of this part of me. What does that mean? Right. So the unknown begins to play this game of like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. You don't know the unknown. But the truth is that we do know the unknown. We've known it our whole existence, right? And also even prior of coming here, like we know it. And then so like surrendering and letting go of the steering wheel in a way, right? Letting go of like really grabbing into this old foundation that we had so then we can actually embrace the new one. And most of the time as we going through this death and rebirth processes, it's so empowering, and then we realize like, oh my gosh, why was I holding on to that so much?
Mhm. The grip, right? That grip, and it's like we just have to open up and soften, especially as women, right? We have to soften, we get to soften and release those toxic structures, right? That we have been ingrained in us, right, from the patriarchy, and
Oh my
we're
gosh,
not taught
yes.
to soften or even receive.
Oh, totally, totally. Receive, that's like I think so much about this, right? And seeing other women that I work with and all the other sisters that are in this struggle of like really receiving, but we're so worth of receiving it, right? And what is the story that is being played over and over and over again, not just in the head, but in the energetic channels that makes you believe that you're not worthy, that you're not worthy of experiencing you, that you're not worthy of living this relationship that is not serving you well, like so it's such a like a deep inquiry, right? To really sit, and maybe it's a really long inquiry to sit for that for many months or maybe many years, right? I mean, for me, I know that for me it was being afraid of my power. I was so
Mhm.
afraid of my power. And I just talked about this in this women's circle that I'm in, because the topic was power, right? And I saw growing up in Peru how the people with power just did not care about in what we can call, if we can call them like lower people. Like it's not, they don't care, they don't really like show that they care so much about the indigenous people or the people that are working the land, right? Like farmers. And there's just this thing for money. And
Mhm.
I was so afraid of that, thinking that my own inner power was like that. And then slowly throughout the whole journey, I began to soften and soften into my heart space, and my heart just let me, and all the synchronicities happened, and until I was able to look at it through reflection of other sisters, honestly, the powerful mirror
Mm.
reflection, like, wow, that beautiful power of the heart. That's where it's at for me, at least, and I honestly just fully embraced that this past week. So this is why I was so excited to hear
Ah.
about you, because it was a massive death and rebirth process. It started, well, it was kind of like, coming up little by little, but on the Lionsgate day, it
Mm.
came up,
Mhm.
and it was a huge process until Saturday. And I had been sitting with so much and crying and screaming and the whole deal until I fully surrendered to that. And yeah, so I invite you, especially sisters, that you're hearing this, that to know that this struggle inside of us is not really what we are, that it's just this cloud. I like to call it clouds, right? This cloud in the collective that we have taken upon because we chose to have this experience. But in reality, there's no struggle, there's just ease and flow within you. And the more that we tap into that, the more it's like, whoa, look how
Mhm.
powerful I am.
I pulled that card yesterday, Thecla, in my
Ah.
Divine Feminine deck. If you're listening, look up the goddess Thecla. Like, yeah, it's like the struggles are illusions, but they're here for the polarity, right? To show us, yeah, so many of us are afraid of our power, right? Because
Mm.
we were persecuted in past lives.
Oh
We were,
yeah.
oh gosh, I get chills thinking about all the ways that we were I don't want not minimize, but not seen for our truth and not respected, right? And loved for our power. And now, yeah, like you said, and the power in this world is not um it's not shown in the most light. And it's not channeled for the
Hmm.
people, right? It's not channeled for the collective. So yeah, that story, right? The being afraid of our
Mm.
power. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes. And I love that you're coming around to share your story, right? So what a big opening of the throat chakra. When also, on like ages for women, it was like so blocked. And there's still sisters that are working through that, right? I mean, I myself, I'm still working through that, right? Allowing my voice to come through as it wants to come through. I find it like it's a really powerful tool, for the divine to express itself, right? And to let the voice come through is so healing, and it's so empowering when we see somebody else. This is why I reached out to you, because you were sharing your story. I was like, yes, I am totally celebrating you for
Oh,
doing that and to taking, I mean, it's a very vulnerable space to share your story and to put yourself out there. And many people don't really understand that until they are in that position and they're sharing, right? But at the same time, there's so much empowerment that happens. I'm sure you've been feeling that. And other people are reaching out, like saying, wow, thank you for sharing your story, or thank you for doing this. And it's like, okay, whew, okay, I guess I'm doing the right thing.
yeah, no, thank you for seeing me. Honestly, it's yeah, that vulnerability, right? And I actually just shared a workshop. Like, vulnerability is our superpower, our sensitivity is our superpower. And especially as healers, as way showers, as teachers, right? Um, we have to share our stories because that's where clients or anyone who is resonating with our story, they're like, oh, she's human too. She understands what I'm going through,
Mhm.
right? And that de-pedestalizes us, right? That puts us on the same playing field. And I tell my clients, I'm just holding your hand. I'm holding
Mhm.
a lantern. That's all I'm doing. I'm showing you your light again. Like, I'm helping you remember your light. You know it's there, but
Mhm.
I'm just helping you see it. So it's yeah, it again, to the divine timing, right? Because sometimes we'll be like, I've had these inner gremlins of like, you should start sharing months ago, or these old stories of like, oh, you're not, you're behind, or it's so funny when we interject those voices, right? And we're like, what? No, I'm right on time. Like, be quiet. Like, lower your I'm lowering that volume button there. So yeah, it's definitely, yeah, this summer has just been deep reflection,
Mm,
I think too, because now, yeah, I found my beloved, my partner, who I'm like, wow,
mm,
this is it. Like, this, I thought I found these things before. No, no, no. Like, this is it. So
mm.
yeah.
Congratulations. What a beautiful gift to find that, and of course what you're offering, but at the same time, you're just giving so much love. And then you are receiving it now. Now you're in that space of like, yes, I welcome it. Yes, I receive it. I'm so worthy of receiving. And then here goes, you find your beloved and then you move in with him. I mean, wow, what a beautiful story.
Yeah, that will be another book, honestly. I'm a writer, I really, I feel like our lives can be movies at times, and
Oh, yes.
I asked for a magical love story, I honestly did, and for a long time I didn't think I could receive it or I was worthy, right? And I know I'm eventually meant to help women through that too, manifesting love and like really believing that they're worthy of receiving someone who can meet them where they are, because
Mm,
so many of us strong, powerful, feminine leaders, right? We don't believe like, oh, there's going to be someone to match me,
right.
to a
Yes.
lot of times in the past, right? We'll minimize who we are, we'll sacrifice our beliefs or our values, right, for the sake of a relationship. And no,
Hmm.
there are men out there that can meet us consciously. Yeah.
Totally. Totally. And I so resonate with like, this fairy tale of like love story. I mean, the way I just feel called to share this because the way that I met my partner, I was in no way, shape, or form asking for it because I was actually living a marriage in Las Vegas. Like I had seen our energies separating at Burning Man the year before, and I knew I was just preparing my body, like preparing everything about me for the divorce. So I moved to Thailand. I left everything behind and I had one of my yoga students had moved there. But then she told me we became really good friends because I went to Thailand the year before, and then she's like, yeah, just come here. She knew exactly what was going on. So it's like, okay, cool. She was living in Copenhagen in the south. I think it's south, maybe east. Anyways, and day before I moved, she messaged me saying, you're gonna stay with my best friend at his house. He lives right next door. I was like, sure. I was like, yes, as long as I have a bed, that's all I care. And I show up to his home, I mean, even till this day, it's like, and obviously, like the first month, we barely talked because I was so in my own inner world and healing and processing many things. He was processing other things too. And then it was him, the one that helped me as the light
Mm,
language was coming through, as all this like channeling things were coming through. I mean, it was powerful, and to see that in him growing to be able to have somebody that is holding me as I'm processing all of that and growing super fast is mind blowing. So I'm always telling him like, we are together and you see me as like a really powerful woman. Let me just mirror that back to you, that you are also a
mm,
really powerful man. So
mhm.
sometimes these things happen when we're not even expecting them, but our souls are like, I got you.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, no, it is. I literally saw a license plate said beloved right after we met. And I was like, no, like, no way. My human was like, no, I'm not. February is self-love month. Like, I'm not looking for anything. But my soul was like, okay.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, no, and that's part of the surrender as well, right? Like, asking for something, setting an intention, and then letting go of the result, letting go of the outcome, letting go of when or the how. And, that's the grip we were talking about before, where regardless of what your intention is, right? It's like you'll hold on to it and you'll like squeeze it so hard that it's like the universe can't even see it because you're not letting it flow and be released
Hmm.
and just happen in a
Yeah.
way, right? So yeah.
Mm. I wonder if somebody is there in the space that you were in when you knew that you had to leave your partner, right? What kind of wisdom could you share with them?
Mm. Well, also how you had said it took you a while, right, to actually make that, like take that step. I would say journal.
Mm,
Journal your thoughts. I have found journals from a year before, 2 years before, and my soul was just writing down, like, "It's not working out anymore." Like, my soul was writing down, like, "This isn't it anymore." But my human had to catch up. So, really allow your thoughts, release attachment to your thoughts, and just free write,
mm,
and get quiet. Um, I didn't talk to many people about it. I think it's really important as women too, because we tend to go to our girlfriends and share things. And listen, I believe in sisterhood. I've held space for hundreds of women, but sometimes there are times where we have to just get quiet and close out the world to be able to hear that inner voice that
mm-hmm.
knows. Regardless, maybe you are meant to stay with that person, but like journaling, getting out in nature, doing things with yourself will really help you come to that most aligned decision. And sometimes people are meant to come back together, it's really trusting yourself.
Beautiful. Journaling is so powerful. So powerful. And like you said, it's a beautiful way of opening channeling too. It's like I found that whenever there's something sick, it just comes through in writing, and it's really, really helpful to clear all the cobwebs. And what would you say to the ones that are so afraid to be with themselves and to take
Mm,
space for themselves?
yeah, we're also not taught to be alone in this life, right? We're taught
Mm,
to distract ourselves with our phones, with things outside, events and people and experiences. And I really believe when you see yourself as your best company, you will only allow in others who will see that as well. So start doing little things like bring a book to lunch, take yourself out to lunch one day, bring a book, go to the park and just sit in the grass and meditate, start to give yourself a date every week
mm.
where no one else is around, there's no obligations. You could turn off your phone and just see what comes up. It gets uncomfortable.
Totally.
It's like, oh crap, like I am alone. Like, be out in nature, like things that because that's when the shadow work comes up, right? That's when like
Mhm.
all the old traumas, all the old things come up because our soul is finally like, yes, she's listening. Oh my gosh, we can get to her now. Like our guides are just shaking their heads like, finally, she's alone.
You're so taking me back to the artist way. Have you done the book?
No, I feel like you're not the first person to mention it to me though. So I get to look into it.
It's a beautiful transformational book, and I actually did it right after I got divorced and I went back to Thailand and I started this new relationship with my partner, with Derek. And I needed something, I needed something. And I was very, very good at sitting in stillness and all these things, but there was something else that needed to be moved. And so it's really beautiful because she talks about the morning pages, Julia Cameron. You do the morning pages, 3 pages every single morning, even if you don't know what you want to write about. You can just write for the 3 pages. I don't know what to write about, until eventually something comes out. And then you take yourself on a date every single
Oh,
week. This is why I was like, you are so in sync with that. It's so empowering. I mean, just those two things, right? I think it's 12 weeks, but every week there's a topic and there's all these questions to like inquiry and all these things. It's so empowering. It helped me so much. And I took it like, yes. I mean, I think I honestly did every single question. Most of the time it's like pick one, but I just had the time to allow the healing power to come through, so it's lovely. So I just wanted to share that because I
That's
was like,
so
wow, you're
funny.
so with that.
That claircognizance, right? People are like, how'd you know that? Or like, how'd you do the healing? I'm like, I just intuitively felt called to do something. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
it's powerful. I mean, I believe, how can we expect to be with other people intimately, especially, but even friends, when we don't know who we are, right? Or we don't even
Totally.
know what we like, or we don't even know how we want to spend our time. My year solo, I was selfish. I just did what felt good to me, and it led me to amazing experiences. So, yeah.
It's an act of unconditional love to the self. So beautiful.
And then when you show up in partnership with someone else, you don't need them,
Hmm.
right? You want to be with them. You desire to be with them because it's like two independent souls who've done the work who are now coming together as two whole beings, right? Like, I
Totally.
don't believe in that. Oh, find my other half. No, you are whole on your
Yes.
own. And you get to be with someone who will complement you in that, like you shared
Yes.
before. And it's
Yes.
not to say it's not hard work, right? But it's a conscious relationship. You're going to have challenges. Of course, we're human, and at the same time, it's lighter because you
Hmm.
are coming in desiring to be with someone, not needing them.
Totally, totally. And I love what you said also about, being in stillness and like listening, right? So, like the quote, the quieter you become, the more you're able to hear, right? I mean, it's so true. I mean, so true to me, so true to so many of my clients. And I really feel that it's true for all of us, right? So, we're not really that much different. And I just wanted to share it for anybody that is listening that at the beginning it might feel really uncomfortable and very scary to be with yourself and like that absolute silence and stillness, right? But then honestly, because that's how I was, right? I suffer from anxiety and depression, so I didn't want to be with myself. And now I was just laying in bed with Derek a couple nights ago, just reading, and at one moment I put the book down and I just listened to the silence. I was like, wow, it's so comforting and it's so beautiful
Mm,
to be able to just be there and not needing all these distractions or all these sounds, and the sounds are a little too much for me nowadays. So I just really prefer that, and it's beautiful to feel the energies of others in that space too.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gift. It's a gift we've forgotten
Mm-hmm.
in this
Totally.
busy, loud world we decided to incarnate on.
And what a journey, right? I mean, really taking the time to honor you, sister, because it's not an easy work at all. Yet, like you're doing it, if you've been doing it and you're showing up, perhaps even in the moments that you feel that you can't even show up. And this is also an example, right, for others, right? For other sisters that are out there, or even brothers if you're listening to this, right? I mean, you can find yourself in one situation in your life where it just does not feel aligned, and know that you have the power to shift that, and the power to really to get to know yourself and call in, brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever it is that you need for
Hmm.
support, because it will come just like you were saying, about podcasts, and then all these things came up for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, she's sharing again. We'll have her on these podcasts, and you heard the call. Yeah, it's the path, right? We're on the path, and we can't go back to sleep. We
Mm,
can't just
yeah.
shut off because we're here to one, lead ourselves,
Hmm.
right? Lead our souls who signed up for these big, juicy lessons in this lifetime, and then to share them so others, we all have teachers, and then we have students, and it's just like this continuous wave of helping each other.
Totally. Yes. Mm. So can you share with us your offerings if there's anything coming up for anybody that really resonates with your energies?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So right now, well, if anyone's interested, I've been really tapping into my YouTube channel. So I have just started my YouTube where I've been doing guided meditations on there, as well
Beautiful.
as uploading my podcast interviews. So if you want to go subscribe, Michelle the Mystic on YouTube, you can also find me on Instagram at Michelle the Mystic. And yeah, there's a free I could send it to you, a free energy cleansing and protection meditation for
Beautiful.
anyone. And my offerings are always evolving, but I always have intuitive readings up. So if you're looking for guidance, if you're looking for support, I offer those. And yeah, it's ever changing.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so beautiful how when we change, also our offerings begin to merge, and change too. So are all these offerings in the link on your Instagram?
Yes, you can
Okay.
most everything is the link in my bio on my Instagram.
Okay, great. So I'll just put that down so people can just go click and then, find you. Yay.
Great.
Is there anything else that you feel called to share, to say before we close this beautiful space?
Only love is real. Only
Hmm.
love is real. Everything else is an illusion. And when we remember that, you'll remember your heart space and your guidance within.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to join me here. I'm so grateful and so honored and super excited to continue to connect with you.
Oh, it was a pleasure. It was so fun.
Yes, and thank you everybody for tapping in. Again, feel free to share this episode especially if you feel that one of Michelle's wisdom nuggets were just like, yes, maybe somebody else needs to hear it, right? It's all about sharing and really tapping into, again, just the beautiful space of community and love. So thank you so much. And I'll see you next time.